welcome to...
Hello, hello, hello.
And tonight at Monday, what, 43rd, 44th episode, John? 45th? Oh, my God. Just going into our 12th month. It's amazing, yes. And the crowd goes wild. All right. Well, as we continue to evolve, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and change not the premise, but the model of the show into a panel show, tonight we're going to have two guests, one here live that I'm going to introduce to you in a minute, and one on the screen behind me, beaming in from Texas. And we're going to have a very, very interesting show with this panel of two, and soon we are going to be expanding to a panel of three, and that's where we're going to keep the show forevermore, unless we get really large and we need a panel of hundreds. Who knows? It just depends how big we get. But as always, let me just give a premise of the show. Last week we had a little bit more than 42,000 viewers that watched our show with Ms. Julie Gelbwax. Mark, that's not her name anymore. Julie what?
Julie Hollander.
Julie Hollander. I'm sorry. I knew it too long as Julie as Gelbwax. Came on and talked about cruising, which is the #1 vacation for seniors. A little bit outside our normal topics of long-term care and life insurance and in-home care. Not quite as serious and somber, but important because we have to have a quality of life after 62 when we're healthy enough to enjoy it. So again, the premise of 62 Who Knew for our first-time viewers is very simple. As people approach 62, the idea of retirement gets more and more prevalent in their mind. And as I've said many times before, our fathers, their fathers before them, they all had the same thoughts. Should we pay off our house? Did we get to pay off our house? Did we save enough money? Should we invest in annuities, or should we invest in CDs or the stock market? Do we need long-term care insurance? Should I take my Social Security at 62 years old, or should I defer till a later date? The questions are endless, and every generation has those same questions, those same obstacles to overcome. Until my generation, until the baby boomer generation. What is today, the 24th? I am 10 days away from being 61. And in this generation, we have one slightly different obstacle, and that obstacle is longer lifespans. No one can deny that scientific improvements, medical breakthroughs, and technologies over the last 20 to 30 years have prolonged lifespans like never before in the history of man. Now, if you make it to between 62 and 65 in the United States of America, the odds are better than 50-50 that you're going to make it to 90. So where our fathers and grandfathers planned for a future after retirement of possibly 10, 15, at best 20 years, now you have people sitting down and saying to their financial planner or their children or their trusted advisor, we're going to live another 30 years. Who knew? Thus our name. So every week we like to have a topic and national guests to say how really can we get from 62 to 90 or 95, or like our friends at the Weissman Institute have told us when they were on the show, which very well could be 95, 100, or 105 years old in the very near future. So that's what 62 Who Knew is all about. We bring you these kind of guests, and without further ado, I'm going to introduce today's two-person panel. We have a panel. We're making history, okay? So first we'll do the nice young lady that is here, who was nice enough to come with almost no notice. I called her on Friday and said, I want to do a panel show. Can you come? And she went, I'm on my way. Diane was on 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think it was
only 3 weeks ago for the first time. Ms. Diane Daniels is the founder of the Medicare Nation, which is the largest podcast in the country on the topic of Medicare. She's also a very well-known national spokesman and expert on the topic of Medicare and Medicare supplements. And your show 3 weeks ago was one of our most widely watched shows. Not only thanks to you, but proving that this topic is just relevant for everyone. Mm-hmm. That's our first guest. Who is our second guest? Our second guest is a man that is becoming more regular on our show. Not that he's irregular, but more regular on our show. He is it's hard to describe when you are personal friends with a guest. Not only his knowledge and his caring about the long-term care insurance world is known throughout the country, but his passion for what he does, how he does it, how he passes on knowledge to others. Mr. Mark Goldberg is known throughout the country with his level of profession and, as I said, passion about the long-term care insurance world. And he is going to be one of our regular guests on our panel because long-term care insurance seems to weave its way into almost every topic that we talk about. So Mark is going to become a regular guest on the show. And of course, his company has agreed to be our national sponsor for long-term care insurance and other related products. So again, without further ado, from Texas, the man of the hour, the man with the power, the man that is just too sweet to be sour, Mr. Mark Goldberg. Welcome, Mark.
Wow, rhyme. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Diane, he rhymed like a Muhammad Ali type rhyme.
I kind of channeled Dusty Rhodes for my wrestling fans out there.
It was
But
pretty good.
Yeah, wow, that's wonderful.
but that's what you are to me.
Boy, oh boy. How did you arrange this? Beauty and the Beast again. You bring on these beautiful guests, smart as a whip, and
Yeah.
bring me on to like dumb down the curve.
My mother
What's
didn't.
the deal?
My mother didn't raise ignorant children.
Yes, I see that. I see that. Okay.
Well, this is going to be a very rare show. It's going to be a rare show because it's the first time we've had two people.
Oh.
We've had two people before, but one for 30 minutes and then the next one for 30 minutes.
Right.
Never two at a time, and soon we will be doing three at a time, and that's where we're going to stop at three. But when I say it's rare, not only because it's our first panel show, it's because I'm not going to be doing much speaking, which I have a feeling that's going to be a very common thing when we have three experts on the show.
It's important too, Michael, that you stop at 3.
Yeah, why?
Can't go beyond 3 because after 3 you don't know who to thank.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So we are going to do this, but the truth of the matter is I'm going to set it up, and then I'm going to let you guys go. I do want to remind the audience, which I never do, but please go to if you're already on, www.webeamtv.com/live. You'll come to our show, scroll down, go into the chat room. Last week we had several questions, many questions. I'm looking at them, and I'm embarrassed to say, and I didn't look at the chat room. This is becoming more of a involved show. It's not just us
Michael.
talking.
Interactive.
That's our audience. So I don't want to make that mistake tonight. Go to the chat room on WeBeam TV. If you have questions on Medicare, Medicare supplements, long-term care insurance policies, life insurance policies with long-term care riders, what is known as a hybrid policy, please send in your question and we will answer them on air. And if you send in too many or you see this as a repeat Monday through Sunday, please still send in your questions and Mark or Diane will answer you during the week. But again, I'm just going to set this up just a little, and then I'm going to let you guys go at it because, we have Medicare, which is a government entitlement program. It is for all. You turn 65, you get Medicare in this great country. Your adversaries or your detractors would say, it's getting ready to go bankrupt. It's in terrible shape, blah, blah, blah. But Medicare helps this nation every second of every day. Then we have the private look at it, long-term care insurance, which as a layman I think is needed in addition to Medicare. And then, of course, there's that question of Medicare supplemental policies, which is paid for privately. And you two have to correct me if I'm doing this wrong. And what kind or what should you really do for that extra 20%? So I'm going to let Mark ask a question because you asked a few when we were on the phone earlier. Many people I know so many people in the industry, I'm going to stay away from Medicare Part B. I wouldn't bring that up to a client if my life depended on it, blah, blah, blah. You have to go med sup. You got to go private. And then I know insurance experts exactly the opposite. So I'll ask the first question. I changed my mind. You're not asking.
He changed his mind now.
Changed my mind.
I saw that. He changed his mind.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't notice that.
It's going to be that kind of show.
It's the host prerogative.
All right.
Why is it like that? One extreme to the other. And to you, and this is your expertise, what is your answer when somebody says Medicare Part B or a private Medicare supplemental policy?
Well, we contribute into the FICA taxes our entire life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by contributing into the FICA tax, which is the Federal Insurance Contribution Act, we're paying towards our contributions ourselves towards Social Security and Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
So when we turn 65, we want that Medicare Part A and Part B available to us.
Okay.
All right. So Part A is your, I like to call it, is where you're going to stay overnight. So the most common place you're going to stay overnight is in a hospital. So as an inpatient, that's Part A in a hospital. Also, part of hospice is under Part A of Medicare. Okay, and you can have that in your home or in a facility.
Mm-hmm.
And if you stay overnight in a skilled nursing facility, that's Part A of Medicare. Now, that's going to come free of premium to you as long as you put in your contributions into FICA for 40 quarters,
Mm-hmm.
all right, or 10 years of your life. Part B is considered optional. And Part B is all the out services of Medicare, where you get treatment and you get diagnosed and you're going to see your doctors and you're going to have preventative services where you don't stay overnight.
Right.
So it's so easy if you just break it up. If you're going to stay somewhere overnight, it's Part A. If you're not going to be staying anywhere overnight, it's Part B. As simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's optional for Part B. And a lot of people don't know that. And that gets them into trouble if they're still working after they're 65 and they don't know. They think they have to take it. They don't know they can delay it while they're under an employer plan and things like that. So contributing into FICA your entire life, here you go, you're 65, you're ready for Medicare. Part A is going to come free of premium to you when you turn 65. Part B, people need to do their due diligence and find out, should they take Part B when they're turning 65 or should they delay it because they're still working and they're on an employer plan and it's a good enough employer plan that the benefits under the employer is going to be cost effective for them instead of having to pay the government Part B of Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they might delay that until they finish with that employer's retirement plan and they retire or they leave to go do something else.
Right.
So it's there, but they have to do due diligence to find out if they should take it when they're turning 65 or if they should wait. So that's the original thing they have to do. Then they've got to decide if they do take Part B, are we going to just stay on original Medicare? Are we going to add a supplement to original Medicare? Or are we going to add a Medicare Advantage plan to manage all of my medical health care?
Mm-hmm.
So these are a lot of options and things that people have to think about. And it's very confusing, very convoluted and complicated.
Absolutely.
The rules and regulations change all the time. And quite frankly, the Medicare.gov site has gotten a tiny bit better, but I'm on there every day with clients. It's not the best tool for someone to be on. It could take hours and hours, for someone to find the information. You do need a person that's a specialist or expert in that field to help you with this, to navigate through all the waves of rules and regulations and plans to help you decide what you're going to do.
And Mark, your opinion on, like I said, the schism that I always see. No, I'm going to stay away from it no matter what. No, you should. It's just amazing how there's two opposite ends of what people think about this, and it affects everybody.
Well, first off, it's been a pleasure to be back on the show and with such a knowledgeable guest. I mean, Diane's the queen of Medicare, so I defer to her on these subjects. But I got to say, I can't imagine how anybody would go forward once they reach 65 and not take full advantage of the Medicare that they rightfully earn through their tax deductions or tax contributions the entire time, but also put the supplements and or Medicare Advantage in place. The real question for me is which one is the better solution, and I don't think there's a clear answer. I think it's something that's got to be analyzed on an individual basis as to what's the better answer, the supplement or Medicare Advantage. And again, that's where Diane's expertise comes into play.
Was I wrong in saying that this is an entitlement? Because I should know that. I'm an employer. I'm always matching people's funds and their Social Security. So because they did give into their FICA account, they paid for this. This isn't an entitlement, is it?
They did pay for it.
Yeah, so
exactly.
really when you pay for something,
the
it's not
government
an
borrowed all the
entitlement.
money out of it, but
Yeah.
they paid money into it.
So then really when you pay for something, in my opinion, I was wrong. That's not an entitlement policy. They paid for it.
They paid for it.
So again, what does, someone comes to you and says, okay, Medicare Part B or Med Sup, what do you say to them?
So again, if you came to me, if you were still working, okay, we're going to sit down, we're going to do a comparison, line item by line item compared to your employer plan versus being on Medicare and paying the federal government for your Part B okay, which if you're making it under 85,000 is going to be $135.50 a month. Just to be on Part B, it's being a member. It's like being, in AAA or the AARP. You're a member now. So to be a member of the club, you got to pay $135.50. You don't even have to write it down, Michael, because that's right now. Next year it'll change. It's going to go up. So don't even write it down. But you got to decide what's going to be cost effective for you. Stay on your employer plan if you're going to have less money out of pocket, and the benefits are good enough that you're not going to be spending a maximum, trillions of dollars out of pocket. Or is it going to be better for you to pay that $135.50 and then add a Medicare supplement? Okay, which is at minimum here in Florida for a woman turning 65 here in Florida, the minimum plan I could find for her, Plan FF, is it Frank, which is the most comprehensive. They literally can go to the doctor and hand their Medicare card and the supplement card, and they'll pay nothing out of pocket for all medically necessary treatment. Is going to be $179 a month. That's here in Florida. So you got $179 a month for a woman turning 65, plus the $135.50. She's making under $85,000. Now you also need a prescription drug plan, and the cheapest one in Florida is $13.40. Okay. So add that all up. You're my math man.
All right,
what does that come to?
$300
there you go.
Month.
Okay, so for $300 a month, you got the best care in the world. All right, you can go anywhere in the United States and its territories to see any doctor or facility as long as they are accepting Medicare.
So she's over $300 a month, and if Michael's not working, then he has no choice. He would need to pay the $300 a month because he no longer has his employer's, or would there be a difference in the fees and cost?
Well, being a member of Part B is going to be you're going to pay the federal government the $135.50 no matter what, right? Because that's to be a member for Part B.
Now, is that $130?
Isn't there something about? And again, this is how I'm learning as well here. Isn't there some point where they can just take the $135 out of the Part B of Medicare, or of Social Security?
Yeah, that's exactly where they take it out of immediately, so that they don't have any problems. They get
physically pay it. They just deduct it from my Social Security.
Yeah, it's coming out. Right, exactly. Okay, unless you didn't qualify, and you would have to pay for it.
I'm unfortunately a little confused here. You're saying that that's like a membership.
It is for Part B because it's optional.
Okay, but that $135.50 is going to take care of a certain amount of bills that Medicare doesn't pay?
Yep, because Part B is your outpatient services. And that's your direct part of Medicare. That's Part B.
Doctors, all those other things beside the hospital.
All your outpatient medical care, doctor visits, getting your blood drawn, having an MRI, going to have a colonoscopy, going to have outpatient knee surgery. That's all covered under Part B. Okay?
And you can have Part B and a private Medicare supplemental policy.
That's correct.
I didn't know you could have both. I don't think most people know you could have both. Because with all the mortgages that I do, quite frankly, you don't ask insurance questions, but you do ask liability questions. How much do you pay for this? How much do you pay for that? And I don't remember in my 37-year career somebody saying, I have they're taking this much out for Medicare Part B, and I have a supplemental policy.
Yeah.
I remember them saying one or the other, but I cannot recall a time when they could have both.
Well, think about it, because a supplement now, okay, it's not an insurance. It's not insurance. You're literally taking a policy out on yourself.
Right.
In that respect, an insurance policy to pay your out-of-pocket costs that Medicare doesn't pay. Okay, that 20% under Part B, and your Medicare deductibles under Part A, and co-pays and co-insurance. So that's what the policy is doing. It's paying your out-of-pocket costs that Medicare doesn't pay that you're responsible for. So that's all it is.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you.
No, go.
On you, Diane, but the important distinction in what Diane just said, Mike, is that Medicare supplements the parts that Medicare doesn't pay.
Right.
It doesn't pay for anything that Medicare doesn't pay for. And one of those things is custodial care in the area of long-term care. Medicare won't pay a dime of custodial care. And so what she's saying is, yes, Medicare supplement will supplement the parts that Medicare doesn't pay, where there's a big deductible, et cetera. But they will not pay for the things that Medicare doesn't pay for, of which long-term care falls.
So now enter the long-term care insurance world. So in a perfect world, which we don't live in, or at least 99.9% 0.75% of people don't live in. Let's stay away from the top 1/4%. You really should have Medicare, which you're going to get anyway as a citizen of this country, Medicare Part B, a Medicare supplemental policy, and then come to an expert and also have a long-term care insurance policy.
Well, I don't understand why anybody wouldn't get Medicare. I pay, right now I'm 64. So I understand I can sign up later this year, but I can't get it until I'm 65.
Mm-hmm.
I pay approximately a little over $20,000 a year for health insurance for my wife and I.
Mhm.
Now I can get it for what it sounds like about $3,600 a year once I become eligible
Well, that's going to depend on your income, Mark.
on my income.
Yep. So
He makes
the
millions.
first threshold was under 85,000. So the 135.50 is for the majority of Americans, middle America, that make under 85,000, or 170 who are married and filed jointly. Okay.
Now, if I make over that,
Yeah,
which
if
I
you
don't,
make over
I
that. So they
buy
just
my-
added a new threshold to the tiers. They're tier 5. So if you make up to $500,000, okay, you make over 500,000, the most anyone's going to pay, whether you're making 500,000 and one penny or you're making $10 million, okay, you're only going to pay a little over $400 a month.
a month.
It's not a very big
No,
increase from
it's not at all.
500,000
No,
to
it's not.
85,000.
It's not, and it's not. I don't think it was fair. I think you need to have a higher amount.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
For the guy
It's
making
pretty-
$1 million or
exactly.
$2 million.
So,
or things.
now you just heard where they're going to make up the deficit when the time comes.
Yes.
All right. So that's the interesting aspect of this. Obviously, everybody needs to be on Medicare. It's great. It's why they keep talking about Medicare for all and everything else. I mean, it is a government program that's really worked. So we've got that. Again, my mother has a supplement. My wife has a supplement right now on my other mother-in-law, my mother and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law is 97 years old.
Right.
She has the Medicare Advantage program, and my wife says, I don't know why anybody would get the supplement. The Medicare Advantage program has covered everything for this woman. She has a pacemaker. She just was in the hospital with high blood pressure that wasn't able to be controlled. I mean, there's nothing that she's come across where they haven't. In fact, they're now sending her 24 balanced meals a day or something. I have no idea how this works, but they're sending her some sort of proactive health program as part of her Medicare Advantage program.
Well, Mark, I mean, they're both the same benefits because they're the same benefits under Medicare, right? So
Right.
the supplement is covering your out-of-pocket costs for the benefits under Medicare. The Medicare Advantage plan is going to duplicate the exact benefits under Medicare for the beneficiary, and they can also add supplemental benefits like for hearing, glasses, and dental care, and other types of supplemental
You don't
care.
get that with Medicare Advantage? I thought you could get that with Medicare Advantage these days.
Yeah, that's from somebody. You can get them additionally with Medicare Advantage,
extra
whereas the
cost.
supplement plan is only covering your out-of-pocket costs for you up into how much you want, some or all. So it's the same benefits of Medicare, whether it's Medicare Advantage or the Medicare supplement.
So
But
when I go, I'll come to you when I turn 65 and you tell me what I should get as far as Medicare Advantage or Medicare supplement. You're
It sounds like you need
it's
both.
already too, like you
That-
said
that
before,
you're not
Michael,
allowed.
it's like determining when you should declare Social Security.
Yeah.
yeah.
I know
But in
long-term
regards to
care.
long-term care, so I mean, I see this every day, Mark. I'm sure you see this a lot, and also to you, Mike. I have a client. The husband had a stroke, a severe one, in the hospital, treated in the hospital, recovers and is treated as much as they can in the hospital, paralyzed on one side. They go to a skilled nursing facility, occupational therapy to try to get use of his left arm again. They get to a certain point where that a maximum improvement, they release him. He still is got paresis in his left arm. Goes home, can't button his shirt anymore, can't brush his teeth, can't eat by himself.
Hmm.
Medicare is not going to cover those type of daily activities if that is all they require,
Hmm.
because that's called custodial care,
Right.
part of those daily activities.
Exactly right.
Okay? It's the
just nailed it
stupidest
on the
thing
head right there.
ever.
And most people think they did be covered, and
And it
not.
should be, really. I mean, it's
Well,
ridiculous.
that's a different debate. We can have that one.
Well,
but-
we could all day long, but I mean, I can't feed myself, so that's not going to be covered by Medicare until I pass out, You know,
And have to go into
he
a
said, then I go
facility.
into the facility. I got to go in the hospital. Now they'll
Then spend
cover it.
all your money.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, the misconception is that the product will, or Medicare will cover you, which it won't.
Right.
The rule is that in order to get any coverage for just the skilled care portion, you have to have been in the hospital for at least 3 days, not counting the discharge day, and you have to be diagnosed to get better from what they discharge you for. So if you have a chronic condition and you're not going to get better from it, they're not going to pay a nickel.
Okay, now the only thing, though, is on Medicare Advantage plans, there's Medicare Advantage plans that you do not abide by the 3-day rule.
Okay.
So
That's good to
on
know.
a lot of
I know that.
Medicare Advantage plans, you don't have to have that 3-day hospital rule. If you go right into the skilled nursing facility, they'll cover it.
Good.
Mhm.
All right. So that's good to know, because
Yep.
that's news to me. That's one of the things I didn't know. The rule for Medicare, now we're not talking Medicaid now, we're talking Medicare, is that if I'm married, I can protect one house, one car, and $123,600 of my savings. But if I'm single, my spouse moves, passes away, or I find myself, without a second person in the house and the like, I am now going to have to spend my assets down to I have a net worth of $2,000 or less in order to qualify for the safety blanket we call Medicaid, the
Right.
safety net we call Medicaid, which is welfare.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
When
so
you're
that's the
married, it's
rules.
100 and some odd thousand. When you're not married, you
As
go
long
down
as I'm
to
a couple,
$2,000.
one house, one car, 123,600. That, don't bother to write that down either. That goes up every year as well.
Yep.
But that's what you can protect if you're married. If you're not married, then you have to spend everything down.
Yep.
Now there's rules still to get around it, and you have to get the money out of your name and put it in for 5 years and all that other stuff. And there's all kinds of dangers by doing that, and horror stories that go with it, where
Yeah.
people have transferred monies out of their names and then their kids go a different direction, for example, than they had anticipated
Mhm.
when that money's no longer in the parent's name. But that's another conversation. That's the rules. That's how you have to qualify. And again, that's why getting a smart plan for Diane, and then this whole thing, in fact, is about a plan. Let's back up a little.
Yeah.
The whole thing about what we're discussing, whether it be with Diane, whether it be with some of the other rules, is what's the plan that you're going to have in place to deal with getting older in the United States of America? Whether you're going to need health issues or
Mhm.
long-term care issues or your burial type insurance, whatever it is you're going to deal with, you have to have a plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because if you don't have a plan, then all of your funds, all of your savings are subject to being taken away.
There you go.
That's what's amazing to me, that people don't realize that. And I
You have
know
a plan. It's freedom. A plan gives you freedom. I
What-
can't tell you how many clients I've had that have said to me, now I'm going to go take that cruise. Now I'm going to go add that addition to the house. Now I'm going to, because before I was worried that I needed this rainy day money in case. Now that I know that I have it taken care of, I feel much freer about spending some of my savings.
Yeah, well, I mean, what is that cliche that our parents have been saying and their parents have been saying forever? Failing to plan is planning to fail, or planning to one of those, or the other way around. But
One of those things. That's right.
It is.
But that's the truth of it. It is that your audience needs to know that the paramount conclusion that we come to here is that you need a plan. Whatever that plan is that makes you comfortable. Right? And it's not, I'm going to put a gun in my mouth, or I'm going to jump off the bridge, or I'm going to do all these other things. You get a cognitive impairment, you won't know where you hid the gun nor where the bridge is.
Mhm.
So it's not. That's not a logical plan.
Well, let's
You
give
need
them
a-
a plan. Let's
you
give
wanna
them
have
a
a
plan, Mark.
Yeah.
Let's give them a couple of scenarios.
Yeah, let's do a couple of scenarios, and then I want to talk at the end. I am going to come back in because this plan costs.
Mhm.
You were up to a little over 300. I'm not going to guess what a long-term care insurance policy is, but it's X because there's so many different ones.
Yeah.
But then you multiply it by 2, a husband and wife,
Yeah.
and suddenly that person that is retired on, again, we're not talking the top 1%, but we're not talking about the needy and the lower income bracket. That person that's retired on 50, 60 grand a year, which is not hateful living, is suddenly paying 20% for his medical insurance premiums.
Yep.
Now let's add in your life insurance premiums. Let's add in your homeowners insurance premiums. Let's add in your auto insurance premiums. And it really is sometimes amazing when I write a reverse mortgage
Yeah.
and people go, oh, I'm debt free. And you run their credit report.
Yeah.
It's an 800 credit score. They owe nothing on the cars, nothing on this, but they're handing out $1,400 a month in premiums. And it's kind of a staggering thing to have hit you in the face, which did with me a few years ago in my industry, which brought me to your guys' industry. A lot of premiums in this world.
So let's see if we can bring
but it's
it
also a
down.
lot of reward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
well-
there's no doubt. It's better to have the premiums than to wipe out your savings in one long-term care
You know, that
event.
traditional long-term care policy, a person can have benefits that will pay them 10 to 12 times easily what they paid into the policy.
Yeah,
So
you have
you're not
to
gonna,
do it.
You're not going to invest or leverage or save your money to make that kind of multiple.
Nowhere.
Well, let's give them a scenario, Mark. So I'll do a Medicare Advantage one for you first.
All right.
All right. Here in Florida, Floridians are extremely lucky that a majority of the Medicare Advantage plans have no premium.
Right.
So they have no monthly premium. They actually can there are several plan sponsors where the maximum out of pocket in a calendar year is $1,500.
Right.
So we're talking no premium. And the maximum you would have to pay out of pocket for your health care is $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right
good.
now there's some, actionable clauses you got to be careful of because you're in a network now,
Right.
and you've got to see the doctors and the facilities in the network. If you go out of the network, you're not going to be able to receive the care unless it's an emergency. But if you can tolerate that, you're not a person that's traveling all over the place.
Right.
All right, and you can tolerate it. That's a hell of an affordable plan for you.
Yes.
No premium per month. And the maximum you'd have to pay out of pocket in a whole calendar year is $1,500 for your health care.
Mm-hmm.
You're saving
Well,
a ton of money
yeah.
there.
All right. Sign me up.
All right. So now now you add in the part for the long-term care, and how can we make this a valuable asset plan for them?
Well, again, so we're going to assume that they're 65 in order to qualify
That's
for
right.
your
We're going to be
your plan.
65.
right. And so so again, a traditional policy
Mhm.
would probably run them a couple $100 a month on top of that in order to have $5,000 a month or so in benefits if they needed it for long-term care. But there are some new innovations today that has completely turned the equation on its head. And one of those I've spoken about or hinted toward on this program before, but never spoke about, and we need to do that soon, Michael,
Yes.
is a new plan through Nationwide called Care Matters, which this plan actually pays the beneficiary cash. And it allows them to pay in on a multiple choices of payment plans. They can pay in as a lump, they can use a lump sum, they can use a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a paid up to 65 plan, or a paid up to 100 plan.
All right. Well, let's make this simple now, Mark, for the people that are watching. We're going to dummy this down for me and for everybody else, right? Make it simple for them.
Definitely for the host.
Yeah.
So if they're 65, they would take the amount of money they want to. It's their money. They're not paying a premium. They're putting their money into an account with this carrier, and they can always get their money back. So it's not the same as paying a premium and never using it. What happens in this case? They're moving money. They're repositioning assets from one account to another account in their name. So they decide how much they want to move. They divide it between the difference between 65 and 100 is 35. So they divide it by 35, and they move that money in over those 35 years. Right?
What would be?
For that-
Give it a good example. What would that amount be? They want to know what's the amount.
Let's say they decided
just-
$200 a month.
Or $200 a month would be $2,400 a year.
Okay.
$2,400 a year over 35 years is going to be a little over $70,000.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, so so they're going to move $70,000 into the account. They want to get the money back, they can. If they need it. If they need it though, and they took it back, they wouldn't have long-term care insurance. So they shouldn't be thinking about using money they want to take back.
Right.
They're going to have a long-term care benefit, probably 4 times that amount. So they got $70,000 that they're moving in over time. They're going to be able to tap into $250,000, $280,000 if they need it in benefits. right? If they don't need it and they pass away, their beneficiaries are going to get greater than the $70,000 back in the form of a death benefit. So one way or another, they're going to get more money back than they put into the plan. Either they're going to use it for long-term care, or their beneficiaries are going to get it back based on what they paid in, right? Or they could take it back if they want.
Right.
So they have all those assurances, and they no longer have to say, the biggest objection I always used to get was, well, what if I pay all this money in and I never need it?
Right.
Well, now they don't have to worry about that objection anymore. And then within the plan, there are certain benefits that have never been offered before. There are things like the medical inflation index, or to offset to raise the amount of benefit you get paid each year based on what medical inflation goes up as opposed to general inflation. There's an option that says that on the 91st day, you get paid retroactively to the first day of care. So even though you might have a 90-day deductible built into the plan, on the 91st day, they give you a check for the previous 3 months and the month going forward. But the very, very, very best thing about this plan is that it pays all the benefits in cash. It doesn't make you give them a receipt or an invoice or anything else. You have a contracted amount to know that you're going to get paid by the insurance company the amount that they promised you when you signed the contract. And you're going to get that full amount whether you need it or not. And again, I've told this story before, but it's just so powerful. I don't know any other way to express it. My father passed away in January. They had a long-term care plan that paid in cash. My mother collected $225,000 from the plan. He ended up spending $65,000 on his care because she kept him in an adult daycare center. And at the last 6 months of his life, she brought people in at night because she couldn't sleep when he was hallucinating and the like. She took the rest of the money, the difference between the $65,000 she spent and the $225,000 she collected, put it into the market at a time when the market wasn't going anywhere but up. The money more than doubled. She didn't have to take the $65,000 out of her savings or out of her investments to pay for the care because she had it from the insurance company. So that money stayed invested. And between the two, she made over $250,000 profit. You could never, ever do that with a traditional long-term care plan because it's only going to reimburse you what your actual expenses are. So whatever you actually spent, that's what they're going to give you. So you won't have excess money. But because she had a cash plan with the excess money, that's how come she was able to make that kind of, she ended up being much better off financially after my father passed than she was when he was alive. So that
That's
to me is
amazing.
a compelling story.
It's a very
and why
compelling
everybody
story.
should look at this.
And how many years on the plan, Mark, are the benefits available for long-term care?
Well, I normally recommend under this new plan a 6-year payout. She collected that amount of money over 3 years. So you can collect it. The average stay for a woman going to a nursing home is, it depends on who you speak to, somewhere between 3.8 and 4.3 years. I mean, that's the average stay. Obviously, you got a cognitive impairment, you're there longer.
Right.
Women use and stay in long-term care facilities, assisted living and nursing homes, much longer than men, much longer. So if you go, if I'm sure if you've ever been to a facility, you've noticed there's about 7 or 8 times more women there
Absolutely.
than are
Yeah.
men.
Right.
So Michael's waiting for that moment because it's a target-rich environment for him. He figures he'll find the next lady of his life somewhere in a nursing home. But
That's
that's okay. That's a
8 to 1
long
odds,
story.
I think I've got, yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Thank
So
you.
On,
Goo- thank
on that
you,
plan,
Goose.
you have a maximum availability to have a 6-year maximum for
Well,
the
6-year
long-term.
plan, but again, I have it going up with inflation. So
Right.
I sold one this morning to someone who, I should say, I helped somebody this morning apply for it. And when they did, they had $440,000 starting out. But by the time they got to age 80, they had over $1 million. So the amount of money that could come to them was way in excess of what they'll probably need.
So there's a perfect example where a middle-aged couple, okay, could, in Florida, I'm speaking Florida, could have a Medicare Advantage plan with no monthly premium, with a maximum out-of-pocket of $1,500. Again, I I've told you, you would have to stick to the network of their doctors and their facilities. It's going to be a small network because you're looking at a county. Okay, so if you're here in Pasco County, you're looking at the doctors' facilities in Pasco County, except for emergencies. But that gives you so much to free up your money that you'll be able to put a plan in place for long-term care, just like Mark stated, with the new nationwide plan. You can have to coverage up to 6 years, and then with the inflation factor, and you have the death benefit on top of it, and you can get your money back later on. I mean, that's an excellent plan right there.
Okay. I don't know. Again, how can you go wrong? One way or the other, you're getting your money back.
There you go.
Yeah, that's what I have to ask because I'm so used to hearing it in my reverse mortgage world when I say the heirs are protected. You have no debt service while you're alive. I'm not going to do a reverse mortgage pitch. Don't worry. Blah, blah, blah. And
Blah,
they look
blah,
you
blah.
straight in the eye and go, that's incredible. Now tell me the other side. It can't. What happens when the next foot drops? What's wrong with it? What you're both discussing right now to a layman like me, and I am a layman in your worlds, is staggering. Why wouldn't everyone that could afford
Because
it?
they don't know about it, Michael.
They don't know.
That's
That's
the
the
thing.
whole
No,
thing.
They don't
Yeah.
know. Ignorance is bliss, and they don't know. And they hear things. They go to the bridge game. They go to the water aerobics. They go to the whatever, the clubhouse, and they hear things.
Mahjong.
And these things are from left field, and they take them as gospel. And all of a sudden, that's the rule of the world as they know it, and it's just not so.
Until the walls start caving in, and then they realize.
Well, it's always after the fact, right? It's
Yeah.
not proactive; it's passive. Yeah, that's how
So
it
Diane,
is.
let me change the
Wow.
subject a
Yeah, go
little
ahead.
bit.
We're gonna change the subject. We talking
Because
about the
got
Yankees?
heavy
What are we going
here.
to talk about?
I want to lighten it up a little bit. Talk to me. You've been doing this for a lot of years, even though you're still very young.
He's so kind.
What
He
is
is.
what is one of the most unusual stories you have of how you help someone or came across, getting somebody care in an unusual environment when you did it?
So a few years ago, here in Florida, we've had multiple Medicare Advantage plan sponsors that have been terminated by Medicare. And at that time, one of the plans was being terminated, and it was called Physicians United Plan, PUP for short. And I had a client, future client, that called me and said that they were having a problem because his wife had end-stage renal failure. The Medicare Advantage plan was terminated by Medicare, and they can't get on to another Medicare Advantage plan because one of the disqualifications is if a person has kidney failure. Well, they're on dialysis, they can't jump on to another Medicare Advantage plan. And I said, sir, but your wife was on the PUP plan? He said, yes. I said, well, that's a special exception because they were terminated by CMS. And because they were terminated, you have that right now to go on to any Medicare Advantage plan with no discrimination whatsoever. So what they told you was not true.
The actual underwriter that he was talking to told them this?
Yeah. So I said, what plan do you want to be on? So we discussed it, and I met with them, and we talked, about their history, and we found what plan was right for them. I called with them to the plan sponsor, and we got the first customer service representative that answered the phone and explained the situation, and they were arguing with me that they couldn't be on the plan. So I immediately asked for the supervisor, went through it with them. I had to go 4 levels up until I finally got someone that understood the law, that I got to them and said, look it up. You have to take this person because the plan was terminated. You cannot discriminate against them and can't deny them coverage because she is on dialysis and has kidney failure. And finally, after 4 levels in management, we got through to someone that knew what was going on. And they said I was absolutely right. I said, I know I'm friggin' absolutely right. What do you think? I'm sitting here on the phone for over an hour talking to
Without you, can you imagine?
Exactly.
a
How many
regular
people?
person?
You just heard, Michael, in a snapshot, you just heard the key component of all the things, as knowledgeable as Diane is, the key component in the service she provides is advocacy for her clients.
Of course.
There's
yeah.
no way that her client would have understood how to navigate
No.
the byways and highways of that
Absolutely
system.
not.
And how
And it
many
was the
millions?
advocacy she brought to the attention of until she got it done right. And again, that's the biggest problem you have with the medical profession,
Yes.
in my opinion, is if you go into the hospital alone, you're talk about being a risk taker.
Oh,
Yeah.
forget
Who
it.
the hell knows what's going to happen to you unless you have somebody on your side?
You're right.
Your example literally gives me the chills, because how many, not thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands, how many millions of seniors are trying to do that on their own, may even catch a glimpse of some real education in a show like this,
Right.
or your podcast or one of your public speaking. They catch a glimpse of it,
Right.
but they wouldn't have went 4 deep with a national
They would
underwriter.
never
Absolutely
persist
not.
in
How
that
many
law.
millions of people are going without, suffering renal failure, not being able to afford? I mean, it's just staggering. I mean, I know I'm naive when it comes to this. Because every time I hear one of you speak, I go, this
I will
can't
pick
be.
up on Diane said that one of the most rewarding experiences I ever had was a client who, when I signed him up for long-term care, this was from 20 years ago, hadn't been to the doctor. And one of the requirements in long-term care is that you've seen the doctor at least once in the last 2 years. And so I said to him, if you're going to really apply for this, you're going to have to go to the doctor. And he said, okay, I'll go. Well, when he went, he got diagnosed with prostate cancer. And he called me back and he said, thank God you made me go, because you saved my life. I would never have known this had you not gone. Right. One of the things, Diane, I understand that you've been a real pioneer in is that you're a bilingual representative.
I speak Brooklynese,
Brooklynese.
So I noticed the
and I know
Brooklynese.
all the curse words in Spanish. Is that what you're
No,
referring
I think
to?
you might be confused.
You're
with,
confusing me.
with my co-hostess with the mostest that isn't
Oh,
here.
I
With
thought
Nate-
she was
Nate-
Yeah,
bilingual.
yeah.
Oh,
No.
Okay.
But I am talented with Brooklynese and
Yeah,
some
she
curse
talks
words.
New
in
York.
Spanish.
No, I heard the Brooklyn. When you said forget about it, and
Forget about it.
Hey.
Hey.
yeah. Here's your Medicare supplement.
You know, first of all, it's unbelievable that we only have 9 minutes left. If
Are you serious?
If John didn't just say that in my ear,
No way.
I would have said we were on for 15 minutes. So obviously,
Oh,
this is
my
why you're going to be
So we can
regular.
go in whatever direction you want, Michael, or I can
Oh,
tell you
my
a
God.
charming
Well, we
story.
got to help them now. We got to make sure they know how to have a good plan. here.
What do we have? 9 minutes left now, John?
Wow.
8 minutes. Do your
So-
charming story
So
in
my-
7
so
because
my
I
wife-
need a minute.
My wife is bilingual.
By what?
My wife is bilingual.
Okay.
Thank you. By something, yes. And she used to be an agent when I was running the Amex Life was one of the leading providers of long-term care back in the early days, in the early 90s. And I was running an office in Houston and New Orleans. And my wife had come to work there as an agent. She wasn't my wife at the time. She had come to work there as an agent.
Secretary.
And no, as an agent. And and I would send her out when I knew I had, it's Texas, so I knew I had Hispanic speaking clients who would be more comfortable that way. And I sent her out on a particular a person who inquired, and it turned out that the man lived in a clothing optional residential community, a nudist colony. And she went to the front gate and asked for him, and they said, "Oh yes, okay, well we'll call him and let him know." And he told her that it was okay to send her back to his bungalow or whatever it was he had. And sure enough, there he was, without a stitch of clothing on, in this facility, and he led her over to a kitchen table, which was made a dining room table, I should say, which was all glass. And it had the words on there, "Things may appear larger."
Oh, yeah, then they appear. Okay.
I knew we were going somewhere with that.
No. This is a true story.
Yes.
Not so much the words on the glass. I add that part.
Okay.
But the rest of it's true. So this was the situation she found herself in. And I just share that as a way of saying, like, you never know what you're going to run into, people of all kinds that might need care. But that story has always stuck with me.
Yes, I have a similar story, but I'm not going to tell it. It's very G-rated. When I was a young mortgage person, I was sent up here, very close to here, to a clothing optional place to do mortgages. And I walked in, and being in my 20s, I was definitely taken back. And but we're not going to waste part of our 4 minutes, 5 minutes
Well,
left on that
I
story.
said to you, it was like I was trying to bring some. We've talked about a lot of heavy subjects
Well,
here so
I'm
far.
getting. I'm
That's
going to
all
go.
right.
I'm going to
But
get.
let me. Can I ask Diane a question?
Yeah, we
Diane,
got 5 minutes left.
Okay, Diane, do you have any health qualifications whatsoever on the Medicare supplement or the Medicare Advantage?
Do I have any what?
Health qualifications. I can't get everybody long-term care. They have to health qualify for
Oh,
it.
I see what you're saying. Well, they keep changing them to make it harder. Okay, so prior to July of 2018, I was able to get people that were diagnosed with cancer and having active chemotherapy on Medicare supplement plans.
Oh my God.
I was able to find them and get them on it. But from July of 2018, no more. So a person that has active cancer receiving, chemotherapy, radiation will not qualify. A person
They
that's
can still get Medicare, right?
oh
They can't be-
yeah, Medicare. You're also.
You
I'm just
can't
talking about a
get turned
Medicare
down for
supplement.
Medicare,
No,
right, in this
not
country?
for
Okay.
for original Medicare, and you cannot get turned down on a Medicare Advantage plan either. There's no discrimination because it's directly part of Medicare. So
I see.
you can be on a Medicare
Wow.
Advantage plan also.
So she could get a Medicare Advantage plan.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
See, that's a wonderful thing. At least 30% of the people that I apply for long-term care with don't get approved. So
Yeah, I know.
important. It's
Right.
And
important.
so another a key factor that comes up with that, Mark, is that you couldn't have been an inpatient in the last 90 days in the hospital. So,
No.
sometimes they might have to, wait that extra month to make sure they pass that, 90 days from that 90-day period. And then you can reapply again.
That's important. Those are important things to know because
Yeah.
when do people first reach out for this? It's just like when they want the fire insurance when the house is
Oh,
already
after the
When they smell
after it's
smoke.
burned down. I know.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. One of the reasons why you're both going to become regular guests, and I appreciate that. Again, I know I overuse two words. I'm told that when I do my writing and I do my public speaking, and those two words are incredible and staggering. They're my favorite descriptive adjectives. But it is staggering to me that not 10% or 50%, I'd have to say 90% of the public doesn't understand. I'm one of those 90. You guys keep teaching me more. You guys, Bill Comfort, Peter Gelbwacks, Carol Golden, the people that I've been lucky enough to meet through your circle, Mark, keep teaching me. And of course, it's always about education. And it's also about payment. I got to bring it home a little bit. How do you pay for these things, even when you know you need them? But I think one of the things that I want to discuss on another show is your specialty is you have to be 65 years old.
Well, not really. Okay, that's for the majority of Americans.
majority of
Okay, you can be under 65. Okay, if you have been by your state certified as disabled.
Okay.
Okay, or if you have Lou Gehrig's disease.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So there are
But
some
on a
exceptions.
whole, you got to be 60.
Yeah, the
Renal-
majority.
renal
Yeah, the
failure
renal
too.
failure, of course.
And the renal failure. Okay.
Of course. So
let's just say for a second, because we're running out of time. Abnormal circumstances aside,
the
you have to
majority.
be 65 for your world. I'm always complaining that in your world and my world, the reverse mortgage world, we don't relate to each other, and we should. We should be married to each other.
Yeah.
Okay. And then your world, which I'm in love with, which is why I'm studying for my insurance license, the long-term care insurance world. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the best, most opportune time to get that is in your 40s and 50s when you're healthy. Am I
Our average
overstating it?
applicant is 57.
All right, so your world is in the 50s. My world is in the low 60s. Your world is in the mid 60s and above. And am I being Captain Obvious, like on the TV commercials, to state that that's one of the reasons these three staggering industries that is supposed to all take care of the same people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, but we don't get together in their 40s, 50s, and 60s unless it's in a forum like this.
That's right. Well,
Am
first
I
of all,
overstating-
no, you're not at all, because
am I
the people
overstating
think
the obvious here?
everybody thinks that they're like indestructible. They're all Superman and Wonder Woman.
Well, there's only
And
one
nothing's
of those.
ever going to happen,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's always what the problem is. I'm not going to fall and end up in the hospital and need long-term care.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen to
But
me.
the older you get, those thoughts start happening. a little more.
Immediately.
Yeah.
As soon as you hit 50, you start thinking about
Yeah.
that.
As soon as you fall down.
I do public talks all the time, and I say to the audience, how many people here think that somebody in this room is going to need long-term care? Oops, me. Everybody raises their hand, right? How many people think it's going to happen to them? Nobody raises their hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, one of our mutual friends, Bill Comfort, when he was on the show, and I just love listening, to Bill speak. He was talking about different surveys. 2 out of 3 people are going to need long-term care. One survey said 50-50. One survey said 90%. He said, forget all. I remember this like it was yesterday, and because it was years ago when I heard him say it. I'm talking to you, sir, you, ma'am. Either you're getting it or you're not. The surveys don't mean anything. You're either getting it or not.
Right.
We have less than a minute to go. it's just amazing that this hour
Bill
went by this
Cooper
quick.
had one of the best quotes ever, Michael. That was 52.3% of all statistics are made up.
Yeah. All right. Well, you both are going to come back. We thank you for that. We have to talk more about education, getting this out. Let me remind the audience, because I don't remind them enough. I didn't remind them enough during this show, but I didn't want to interrupt you. Go to www.62who knew. If you're in your 40s and your 50s and your 60s and you need long-term care insurance, if you're 65 and above and want to learn about Medicare and Medicare supplemental policies, he just said 20 seconds in my ear. If you're 60 or above, notice I didn't say 62. If you're 60 and above, go to the same website, 62whoknew.com, and ask me more questions about reverse mortgage. We're running out of time. Next week is going to be great. Thank you to both of you.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye-bye.